Hello, 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 and welcome to the Smooth Brain Society. Today we don't have just one, but we have two guests. We are joined by two brilliant members of Women in Neuroscience UK, WIN UK, Ginevra Sperandio and Riya Verma. Ginevra is a pain researcher whose work explores the brain mechanisms behind how we experience and process pain. And she also brings a creative edge to WIN UK as their graphics lead, shaping how the organisation communicates science and community through visual storytelling. Ria completed her BSc in Neuroscience at Warwick before moving into healthcare communications and is now carving out a career in medical charity sector. A social media lead at WIN UK, she's passionate about women's health, equity, and opening up conversations that connect neuroscience to the real world. Today, we'll be spending the first half getting to know their journeys, passions, and research interests, and the second half exploring the work they're doing with WIN UK to build visibility, community, and opportunity across the field. Whether you're a neuroscientist, you care particularly about women's health research, or you're just here for the stories and science behind it all, this one's for you. Welcome, Ginny and Ria.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you for joining. So I guess the first question we'll open up to, maybe I'll come to you first, Ginny, then we'll go to Ria. What is your origin story? What got you into neuroscience?
I was born and raised in Rome, where I did both my bachelor and my master degree, and I graduated first in psychology and health, and then in cognitive neuroscience. So let's say I think I during like the bachelor, I realized that the exams I was like enjoying the most were psychobiology. Actually, my love is psychobiology. I didn't then ended up there, but that was like my first love, and neuroscience. So then when it came to picking up a master, I thought like, okay, this is the way. And in my university, it was like a master that was entirely in English. It was kind of focused on research and international projects. So then I was like, okay, this is also perfect for me. So then I went for that. And then, yeah, that was like how I started. And I decided to say, okay, I want to be a neuroscientist. After that, I wanted to go and try a PhD, also because I did my master's during pandemic. So basically, all my dream of like, yeah, I'm gonna be a neuroscientist ended up with like half of what was supposed to be. So I also couldn't do anything like in the lab for my master thesis. So I was like, okay, I think I want to give it a proper try to neuroscience, and I ended up kind of traveling all over Europe with a Marie Curie fellowship in pain, and this is how I ended up in pain.
Oh, that's perfect. So it sounds, and now you've ended up in Copenhagen.
Yes,
So
still following the neuroscientist dream because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
a
yeah,
lecturer now. But yeah,
fantastic. So yeah, and here we are now, and you're with the WIN UK as well. So I'll talk a bit about WIN UK a little bit more
yeah,
later because I also want to
okay,
know how you got into that as well. But
surely.
I'll hold fire. Ria, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story as well?
Yes, so I obviously completed my BSc at Warwick in last year. I graduated. So prior to starting university, initially I wanted to study medicine. So in my final year of A levels, I had COVID, but I had really bad long COVID. So kind of that kind of period was over the medicine deadline for my school's application. So I said, okay, I can either reapply, take a gap year, reapply, or neuroscience was kind of seen as my backup. Or I wanted to do medicine with an intercalated year within neuroscience. People thought I was crazy and insane, but that's something that I've really enjoyed since a young age, because I like knowing why people are the way that they are and kind of understanding how the brain kind of controls every single situation and every single emotion within your body and every single mechanism. So then I decided to say, you know what, let's go into neuroscience. And if I want to, then I can do postgraduate medicine. So I applied for university, for neuroscience at university, ended up going to Warwick to study neuroscience. Obviously, neuroscience at Warwick is very new. So we were the second cohort to complete our degree. So it was very new. Everything was still kind of figuring things out. So again, there wasn't a solid foundation in terms of any other routes after university apart from academia. But I knew that I didn't feel as though research was for me, so I didn't want to stay in academia. So I wanted to explore other avenues. So after leaving university, I explored healthcare communications. Unfortunately, that didn't seem a right fit for me, but that's completely okay. So now I'm working to kind of create a career within medical charities. So similar to the work that we do at Women in Neuroscience UK, and kind of a similar kind of ethos, because I do believe that that's kind of my purpose in terms of creating a difference within healthcare and within kind of medicine.
Oh, that's perfect. So when you say medical charities, things like the British Heart
Yeah,
Foundation,
yeah,
yeah, which I think you're the founder of WIN is currently at British
yeah,
Heart Foundation, isn't
yeah.
it?
I think their ethos really aligns with Women in Neuroscience. I think the way that this organisation runs, I think it's very similar to the way that medical charities operate in
Yeah,
terms of they really care for their patients, care for the work that they're doing as well.
yeah. So it sounds
Yeah.
like well, yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll see you there soon. How exciting! Do you have any questions here?
Oh well, I've got a few. I guess the first question which I have is to Ginny, which was you kind of spoke a little bit about how you're chasing the neuroscientist dream, or like or trying to be a neuroscience researcher, and you made it almost sound like you fell into pain research. I was kind of interested in sort of that, like what you do within pain research, because we had Arnas Tamashauskas on, who does pain research in a very different way. He was looking at chronic pain. What kind of pain do you look at? What kind of research do you do?
So my research was mainly focused on kind of building predictive models, and I think like the goal of most researchers is actually to find a way to stop researching that field. So the goal is always to kind of predict or find a solution. And my interest was coming from kind of adverse life experiences, maltreatment and abuses. That was my primary interest. And pain in that kind of way was the consequence that is often seen in people with such stories. And in my bigger like program, I had access to big longitudinal data sets across Europe with several different countries. One of my my source of data was the Imagen project. That is a European project that followed adolescents from 13 years old till 25, and it's still ongoing. So like 10 years span of data, dream of every single researcher, I guess. So in that way, I followed up a group of subjects, of participants in that, and trying to understand the effect of all the different adverse life events on the development of pain and comorbidities. Also, another problem that comes with pain is that it rarely comes alone. It is often accompanied by depression and anxiety on top of that, but a lot of other mental health issues. So another core part of my project was the comorbidity component. So in short, what I found is that there are some adverse experiences that are mainly kind of go into the group of deprivation experiences that goes from like neglect experiences, but also like lack of health support and so on. This looked significant in affecting the brain volume of insula, which in terms was significant in the relationship between pain and anxiety and the development of pain and anxiety in comorbidity. This means that insula, that it's a really important area of the brain because it kind of merges the affective components and the somatic components. Being like smaller was also like impaired and ideally was causing like the development of pain and anxiety. On the other side, my other like big longitudinal study was on cancer patients, mainly breast and lung cancer. And in there, I tried to develop kind of algorithm that could be used in clinical practice to kind of predict post-surgical pain and eventually follow the patients like differently. So what I found was that both somatic components like age and preoperative pain, which it's nothing new in the field, but from my interest, like the psychological component that was important was distress, which is triggered especially in cancer patients when they get the diagnosis and then they start like this never-ending journey where you don't know when or if it's ending, and it starts with a really big component in the anxiety aspects. So this kind of three questions can be used in hopefully in clinical practice to flag patients before the surgery and then eventually follow them up. So that is like briefly my my research.
No, that's incredibly interesting. So just to clarify, the insula size, so insula is a region in the brain, and
Yeah.
like that size being important in sort of pain processing. You said that it was smaller. Is this a longitudinal study, or so
Yes.
did you look at like insula growth over time? And
Yes. So yeah.
okay,
Um,
because I guess because my question was going to be that if you look at it over time, is there also sort of were you is there anything in the data which I know this is very hard and if you'd even know, but like was there anything in the data which suggests that if certain conditions were met or improved that like insular size was improved or like pain was better regulated, considering one, how plastic the brain is, but two, because you're looking at adolescence, right? So the brain's still growing. So I was just interested or curious in that.
yes. So to go in the details of the study, actually this mediation model was significant in late adolescence, so like around 18 years old, and then we couldn't find it significant in adulthood, so when they are like 20 something. This could get into many different like conclusions or hypotheses on explanations on that. Mainly, as you mentioned, like the brain is still plastic because we're talking about like still developmental stages. Another component that was important was the fact that there was also a peak in the type of experience that they were having at that time. And another part that is really close to my interest was the sex differences. So if we then split the group, most of the results that I found in my research was actually just significant in the girl group. And that is another huge topic in the field.
No, so what does that mean? What does that sort of mean if the significance was only one way for somebody who doesn't study it? What would that sort of yeah mean?
So like analyzing like the data all together, or separated by sex, so having like the group of girls and boys separate. This kind of course comes into lowering the power of the analysis. So this is why it's often the case in research where you don't see the data split, but it is still important. Both results are significant in a way that it is important to see the group as a whole and separate, because you also find, of course, trends that cannot be seen if you split the groups. But yeah, like most of the results then were kind of null and in the group of boys if we analyze them alone.
So what you're saying is there was just significance in the women. Did the men show any differences compared to women, or were you just specifically looking at the insula?
At the brain level, yes, I only looked at the insula, and the group was like really, really small to properly run an analysis. But in terms of all the other factor, for example, like the incidence of the adverse experiences, or the incidence of pain and the comorbidities, that was significantly different between the groups.
Interesting. And did you use, was it neuroimaging did you use to look at this, or?
Yeah, MRI images. So it was like in the project there is also fMRI. It was like not of interest for me, so I don't know like the functional component of that. But in terms of like volume and size, that was MRI data.
Nice. And was it so was this a research based, or did you get it from the hospitals themselves? So who were you working with when you were doing this?
So this is a huge longitudinal study that involved several different collection sites. So both like research institute, but also hospitals. And I think I also had data from the UK. So there is a lot from different like university sites. So it's kind of a mix of the two.
Okay, so
like just to be sure, like these are not patients.
Yeah.
So it's only like general public. The collection of the data and like the recruitment was run in schools. So we ended up maybe having people being patients like on and on, but the initial recruitment was like excluding all those criteria.
Got you. So yeah, kind of a lot more research focused than going into the hospitals. So because you're like very interested in pain, done a whole PhD in it. Riya, when you're kind of because I appreciate you're the social media lead, but just in general, is there something you particularly enjoy writing about or sharing when you're doing your your health communications or your medical comms and charity work that you want to do in the future?
I think it would definitely be women's health. So even at Women in Neuroscience UK, I also work as the blog writer for the reality section. So within this, I've tried to kind of incorporate my interests for women's health within the blogs that I'm writing. So the one that I enjoyed writing most was about PMDD, so premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I think having a personal experience myself with it and kind of exploring it much deeper and kind of understanding why it occurs, or kind of grabbing as much research as there is available, because obviously the funding within women's health is so poor at the moment, so poor. But I think that communicating this research and having it accessible to the wider public, I think that's something that I hope to do within my work. But also I think to kind of eradicate misconceptions within female women's health. So, for example, within PMDD, many individuals, such as healthcare professionals, think that it's kind of just made up in your head, and it's just kind of this thing that we experience, and it's not a real thing. But I think that communicating how these conditions are real and they're not just kind of a Western culture-bound syndrome, I think that's something that I strive to do within my work.
How difficult have you found it, sort of being able to communicate, which is neuroscience, which is, as it says, quite heavy science-based things to sort of general public?
Yeah.
Do you have particular approaches, or what's your process in doing such things?
I think I kind of like to dissect it in terms of what they are, specifically kind of in terms of medical terminology, and then move on to symptoms and move on to research. But in terms of research, I'm clearly explaining key terms so that the general audience is able to understand them. But also in terms of, I'm always also including resources in my work. So there's a lot of podcasts that are available for the wider public that do explain certain terms and certain medical conditions in a good enough way that the general audience can access these and they are easy to understand. So I do always make sure to include podcasts within my work and kind of resources. So there's a lot on online about, so with PMDD I found a lot on the Mind website. So there's a lot of smaller clips, even if it's information leaflets or even podcasts or even smaller videos that further explain what we're trying to research and what we're trying to explain to support our work.
Yeah, it's really good because I guess people learn in different ways, don't they? You can't just read. You need to see sometimes. You need to hear. Yeah, so that's so you're kind of you're kind of doing all different types of senses almost. So what you're saying is it sounds like there's just not enough. So with PMDD, there's not enough research. There's not enough learning into healthcare. I know endometriosis is obviously a very hot topic at the moment, which is coming up quite often. What do you think? How do you think we can get better research and healthcare within women's research? That's a really wide topic. I'm asking this to both of you because I feel like this will open a can of worms. What can we do better?
As in terms of the general public or in terms of us as neuroscientists?
You know what? Both. But let's do the neuroscientist one first and then we'll do the public one afterwards. Good question.
I think kind of raising and opening up discussions about these conditions amongst blogs, amongst videos, and amongst different platforms. So we do have blog content, and we also produce videos in a smaller section where we're able to explain what certain conditions mean, and again, abolish common misconceptions that are within the media. And I think that's a really big thing to we're working with within women in neuroscience. So again, those kind of things where a lot of the time females are going to the GP and they're not being their feelings aren't being validated that their conditions are real and they're not just made up in their head. I think that's a huge thing. And in terms of the general public, if we're talking to individuals such as sisters, mothers, friends, and kind of sharing their concerns and kind of sharing our own experiences. And when we're going to the GP, kind of pushing for as much as we can further help within our conditions. So, for example, if we're going to the GP about certain conditions that we've experienced, kind of saying, is there any information resources or leaflets that we can access online, or that you're able to give me better understanding of my condition or better understanding of my symptoms, so I'm able to not educate myself, but also the people around me as well.
Yeah, so like you're just constantly like sharing that message with everyone. And I guess as neuroscientists, that's maybe something we need to take on, or is like advocating for, not just obviously the research that we're doing, but for like, the kind of the larger kind of patient groups that it affects. And
that's very like ground up, but I also think, I know you guys can give better opinions of it because I guess it's something which Women in Neuroscience UK does, but having sort of that leadership roles, like sort of more sort of representation in leadership means that you probably will get those more grants or more sort of effective orders from the top to be able to do certain things. What are your opinions on that?
Ginny, do you want to take this?
Okay, yeah. So I would say like, I think Women in Neuroscience has already done a lot in that direction. And of course, like we are a group of women, but we are actually more than happy to have men involved. And the change comes also in that where like the kind of feminist movement or feminist issues are not just from our side. So in terms of like leadership and of getting like the space, I think like having a leadership position in Win UK really gave me also like the confidence to say, okay, I'm doing something. I can get this responsibilities. I can deal with all of this going on. And I'm sure it's also like a big component of being like a role model for people from the outside, and see like what a group of women could have could do and have done. Not sure if I'm answering the question.
I think visibility is like a big factor. So when I was doing my PhD in New Zealand, I was the only brown person in that entire floor, and it kind of would have been nice to see somebody else. And a lot. So our previous guest on Elliot Ukowai, she spoke a little bit about sort of visibility because she's Maori from background, and just having more people who like look like you, sound like you in a space can help in terms of when you're sort of young and you're developing sort of things in early on in your career.
Yeah. I also
No, I
really like
completely
sorry, I really like the point you said about that women in neuroscience. Did you say you also take male members as well? Or
Like we don't put it as a
yeah.
restriction,
You know,
so it's just not happening.
Yeah, I think that's actually just such an important point. Being like, feminism does not stop with women. Feminism is everybody can be a feminist. So
Yeah.
being like, oh, I maybe have. Although people will not say this so much anymore, but I maybe have a voice that people subconsciously listen to more, maybe as a man, like by joining possibly like Win UK. Like there's rooms that we might not be able to get to where they can advocate and get more women in those spaces as well. That should be something. I mean, so here you just get yourself into a member of Win UK.
Sign up. Yeah, I'll do it after the pod. I mean, calling them onto the podcast was the first step.
But I think the point that you made about visibility was really important, because I think even myself, I was one of the only Asian individuals within my neuroscience class. And I think even at Win UK, I don't think I've seen someone that looked like me within a similar position or doing the work that I'm doing. So I think taking that step to change the representation and change the representation amongst neuroscientists and amongst individuals within STEM, I think is really important also.
Do you think that we need more support is needed from up top, or do you think you're getting that, or what do you think the neuroscience community could do more of?
I think definitely more support from above, but I think that what we can do right now is we're doing as much as we can on our level, and hopefully that should kind of have that domino effect in society and within our communities as well.
Yeah. Do you think mentorship programs are important?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think especially when we've been through similar situations and we've experienced certain gender biases within our work and within our communities. And I think if we're able to kind of support the younger generation throughout their university careers or throughout their careers entirely, then I think that will be hugely beneficial for them and also for future generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big thing about being able to, see yourself.
Yeah.
I once knew somebody who got quite mad because they applied to be a mentor, and it was a mentorship for in London, and it was for people who were black, and they were not, and they made a comment saying like they're being racist. I can't be a mentor because I don't have the correct skin color. But there could be lots of people who haven't experienced that. I don't have that person there. There might be a lot of people like me, further up who, I feel like, oh, I can see that, I can see that person doing very well. That's, fine. I can go to them. But there might not be a lot of people from other backgrounds, as you said, Riya, like when you were doing your undergrad, and it's quite important to have that there. I remember just being like a little bit taken aback by it, like by this different types of language that people maybe just don't quite get.
Especially when you're talking to individuals, they need to see you as relatable, and they need to kind of see you as you've experienced similar things to them. So how can you give advice on things that you haven't experienced, I think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad I opened that room. That was a good talk.
May I add something on that neuroscience is also like a kind of special field because it mixes and takes a lot of different faculties and different topics. which is also why I love neuroscience, because you can actually do completely different things. Just because we're studying the brain, we are in this box of neuroscience. But in terms of like this, the representation, what we see is that at the lowest, like at the entry levels, we have way more women. This semester I only had girls in my class, which was amazing, by the way. So because we have a lot of like psychology people coming, so sometimes it's difficult to also demonstrate that there's a problem. So we always see like the scissors effect, and it becomes later a problem. But I've been also addressed, like at my previous lab, where basically there were only women, but the head of the department was a man, and he was like, "I don't understand. What are you complaining all about? Look around you." And I was like, "Yes, but you're the lead in here." So you see that there is still a distance, like a difference. And in neuroscience, in this, it's special because it gets this really low level of people in higher hierarchy.
No, I completely agree with that. That like even in my labs, it's the lead was very rarely a woman, but like a lot of the people underneath were, and like my teaching stuff, same thing. Lots of girls, which is a good thing. There is an argument that that will take some of it will just be healed with time, because I guess a lot of the people who are in are younger or are earlier on in their careers, and a lot of like people in the 70s and 60s were men who were doing this stuff, so they're the ones in leadership positions now. The argument is it's not coming fast enough, but some of it should be healed with time.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we'll see if the good old glass ceiling effect is still here.
We will find out, won't
like,
we?
We are working on that, but like the index, the European Union, but I saw now that UK is also doing that. There's a really interesting lab doing this in King's College, I think. They're measuring the index every year. So and there are a lot of like research on. So we have like a number for each country, measuring like the gender difference in all the fields. And then there is the she figures every year coming, also from European Union, following this scissors effect. So the gap is closing, but it's not, as you mentioned, not at the right pace. So kind of too slow to really reach the goal that we are having at the moment.
The differences between countries is quite interesting to me, because I remember reading this for STEM, not necessarily for neuroscience, but sort of the disparities are least in Eastern European countries and Iran. And I'm like, okay, so we need to become communist Islamic republics to even everything out. It was a joke, okay. But,
no, I know that there's like this paradox that northern countries and Scandinavian countries, even though they're like really pushing on this topic, they're not yet succeeding in that. And this is something like still trying to understand, because there are policies ongoing in Scandinavian countries, but there is also not easy to reach because it's so rooted in culture. And even if you're doing it in your own country, we're still like in such a global environment that it is difficult to make the change if you're kind of alone.
Yeah. Do you think so? Yeah, so I've kind of got this thing where it's like, how do we kind of raise profile of more kind of women getting into, kind of places of like, I guess, power within neuroscience, but just also with just women's health in general, I guess, like how can we, do you think by having women in those kind of positions of power, we can have more research and more grants that are proposed for, more research into this, as most, I think, a lot of So I'm also a neuroimager, so I don't do it. I used to do a little bit of animal work, but I know a lot of animal work is a lot of time done on male mice. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah,
reason
sorry.
behind it, as an animal researcher,
Yeah.
the reason behind it, or what was argued, or what you see, is because the ovulation cycles of mice and rats are about 4 days long, and so they tend to mess with the results. But uh, the exact opposite is, then why don't you study it? That's more important to figure out
So I was
then.
like,
Then yeah, so my lab back in New Zealand didn't do that. We made it a point to like study like
yeah,
both sexes, and if the results were insignificant, they were insignificant or whatever. But yeah, that's generally the argument, that they're more erratic, so it's just cheaper to just do it on the male mice in terms of funding. So there's an economic argument for it as well. But
yeah,
in all cases, yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
Listeners, I'm going to tell everyone a little bit something a bit shocking here. Not only do women mice ovulate, human women also ovulate. Shocking, I know, but here we are. And wow, that is quite the argument. That's quite. I know it's not physical.
I've heard some shocking ones, because we had to justify it in our ethics approvals, right, for why we were doing this and how much money we were using it. So I've gone down the rabbit holes before.
Yes. um, so do you think in general what we need to do is, within research, we need to have, whenever we look at research, we need to just look at sex difference as a whole, or do you think we need to completely just look more into women's health on its own?
I think a bit of both, I think, really. So definitely kind of, especially when you're doing animal models, if you can use female models, please use them, especially when the conditions that you're researching have a high predisposition within females. I think that's a really frustrating thing also. And especially, there's definitely more research that needs to be done within females' health, especially in terms of funding. That's a big issue within that also.
I will go a little like bigger. I think like the problem nowadays is that what we call evidence is just coming from like really narrow kind of non-representative samples, mainly men, mainly white, mainly coming from like what are called like weird countries, so like Western, educated, industrialized, and democratic. So like it is more like getting a bigger picture of what exactly is that mechanism throughout the whole population. And in this, we also get into like the sex differences and in women's health, but it's more like a big problem in research. So like the idea of like one size fits all, it's not, and we are doing that a little bit in trying to have this precision medicine, but we are still running precision medicine studies in the same population as usual. And even with this big data, I use big data. I only had that. I was just my PhD research, and I used what I had. And for example, a lot of the studies are for example, in the UK, come from the biobank, an amazing resource. But we know the limits of that population, that it's a population that was selected and started being analyzed years and years ago. So like it's good we have longitudinal study on that, but we should like shift to another kind of population, and have most a different like representative in science. And again, so in this we need sex differences because we have, and this is what equity and equality is, the change. Like if we use the same approach to everyone, this is equality, it's good, okay, but we need equity because we don't need the same things. We need to, like, there is a really basic like letter schema to explain this difference. If you give like the same box to watch something on the other side of a fence, you are still not getting all the people looking at that. If we actually give the right amount, the right like height of the box to compared to the height of the person that want to look after the fence, then we get equity. So this is where sometimes like the kind of the pitfall of understanding that we don't have the same needs. And it's extremely difficult. I don't have any solution on that. Please don't ask. But I think like we should look in that direction.
Yeah. Sounds like by just identifying it is, the biggest thing, yeah, like I mentioned before, like, some women have endometriosis. That's probably not going to be something that affects, other people. So, we have to kind of look at that. I think a big one thing that you just started to touch on was like, we've got the biobank, it's like a very big population, but what about different cultures? If you were to go to India or Africa, are they going to have is it going to be are they going to have the same struggles as people who are maybe in England? Probably not. Some similar, some not. We have to look across like lots of things, which is just a very, very, very good point. I think probably before I go too much to cultures, because we've had a couple of really good, interesting podcasts on this recently. I guess maybe we could start to talk a little bit more about kind of Win UK's mission a little bit more, and kind of what they want to do. What you want to do?
Yeah.
Anyone.
You go for it. I'm just
say like, what would, like, I guess just to start us off with, like, what is Win UK, and kind of like, can maybe describe what the values are, what your mission is, and why it's so important. So there's a few questions there, so I'll let you answer that, I will.
So I would definitely say the mission that we have at Win UK. So again, a non-profit organisation that works to connect, inspire, and advocate female identifying neuroscientists. I think that's a really big thing. Throughout the content that we're producing, throughout the blogs that we're producing, throughout the workshops that we're hosting, the in-person events and the virtual events that we're hosting, to bring together a group of like-minded female identifying neuroscientists, to connect them together and then advocate for female neuroscientists and their challenges that they've experienced, but also advocate for certain conditions that aren't widely spoken about, that females have a higher predisposition for experiencing certain conditions. I think that's a really big thing also.
Yeah, so we have this like nice motto, I would say, that is like to inspire, connect, and advocate, that really summarize well our mission. And it has the purpose is to tackle sexism and gender bias, and for a more like inclusive and innovative neuroscience. Everything started in 2022 by Litzy English, that we all thank for existing and doing that. She started from like her personal story, because she was feeling what we mentioned before, that like she was looking around and was like, am I the only one in here? And then I don't know, I need to do something. And she started really small. With I think like a web page and some social media, and she definitely like reached out of the UK, because I was not based in the UK at all. So she started kind of small, but in the end she reached out of the country. So we're now like a big volunteer group. It depends. Like I think we reach at some point even 70 people on the group. And we have all different, of course it's a volunteer organization for now. I'm always like, let's do more, but with time. So of course people kind of collaborate and work on different levels. But yeah, we're getting like a lot. We are achieving a lot of goals slowly, and really proud.
Yeah, it sounds like it needs to be Win International at this point.
This was my initial goal, but I started understanding the role of having like local organization.
Yeah.
Because dreaming big, it is good, but you also need someone that is local, that is there, and sometimes getting like big events it's not needed. You really need to feel closure. So
yeah,
I changed my mind.
What's that? Yes, because I feel like sometimes when you're at like a too big of event, it's very difficult to connect. But if there's like 20 or 30 people within a group, like it feels a little bit more kind of a bit intimate, a bit more personal. You're going through a similar journey, and then it can always build from there, I guess, can't it?
I mean, it looks like it's getting bigger. I have followed I follow you guys on social media, and I saw you guys had an award ceremony a few
Yeah.
days ago, weeks ago
Yeah,
now.
so on the 7th of November, we had
Yeah.
Win UK Awards in King's College London. So that turnout was really, really good. And so last year we had it at the University of Cambridge in the chemistry department. This year was a lot bigger than normal. So we're kind of upscaling a bit more each year. So it's really nice to see. And this year, a lot of individuals had met each other previously. So it wasn't that kind of awkward first 10, 15 minutes. So they were kind of talking to each other. They have kind of formed individual groups. So it was really lovely. And there was so many lovely individuals, both female identifying neuroscientists and their allies present there, which was really, really nice to see.
Yeah. Kate Slade was one of the nominees.
Yeah.
One of our
Yeah.
great friends.
Yeah.
Friend of the show.
Right. Yeah, she's a great individual. She came on a few weeks ago.
I think I saw her snippet on social media. She's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, she's lovely. We did we planned an event together a few months ago now for the British Neuroscience Association. She's great. I won't go on, but she is great. I really like it. Really like it. So you spoke kind of a little bit about you've had some kind of maybe like kind of recent kind of wins almost. Can you maybe talk about some things that you've kind of the goals that you've achieved recently and what and kind of visions for the future almost?
Ginny, do you want to start?
In terms of Win UK or like
Yeah.
personally in Win UK?
Do you know
Both?
what? Yeah, both. I I'm just like, I feel like there's two stories to this. Both, please.
So generally as Win UK, as mentioned, we are like kind of getting bigger, but it's not only that. I think when you start having like a partnership and a sponsorship department like team, then you feel that you're doing something bigger. For me, it was that kind of click. Okay, we're getting support from other organizations. We actually, I think we got it from the very beginning. One of the few, I was not even there. I think one of the first events was some kind of like neuroscience, women in neuroscience organization from Georgia. So like, I think we always got this kind of support from the outside, but getting a proper kind of being asked to, for example, when last year I was also there at a conference, we were kind of asked to have our stall and have a lunchtime session. And when you are invited and you're not like proposing in first place, I think it is the way you see that you are getting bigger or you're doing something that is meaningful and resonates with others. And it is also like kind of a challenge because then you get to a different audience than what you're used to. I remember we got a few questions and Lizzie was really worried about a few comments that she received. And then actually the same person, then we found out that she had I think it was a podcast or like an interview, and they said like the best conference, like lunchtime session I ever had, and my favorite part of the conference was that one. And we were really like worried because they actually had a kind of comments or like they were like not criticizing, but actually was like pure curiosity, but we thought it was not matching. So I think like when you get into a bigger crowd and you do something different, then you really see what can be the impact. And in terms like of myself, I started really early. So I joined Win UK in 2022 when it was really different from what it is now. And what attracted me of Win UK is exactly the fact that it kind of still look at the kind of like the young generation of neuroscientists. So other organizations exist, and we have World Women in Neuroscience. We have other groups, but the approach that Win UK has is really kind of like appealing to the undergrads and or like PhDs, without excluding older like generation or like scientists. So this is, I think that this is the way that the Win UK approach helped a lot in expanding. And we tried, like from my point of view, with the help of the social team, we tried to do it with some kind of colorful graphics and like infographics that can also be informative. So it's a kind of a world brand that we're trying to have.
Yeah, being very inclusive by the sounds of it, so everyone doesn't feels like they can, learn and join if they want to, and yeah, no barriers to doing that, which is very important. So you spoke a little bit briefly about maybe getting some I know in this case it was perceived maybe negative kind of feedback. Has there been many difficulties? I know sometimes within kind of when you start kind of groups there can be negative feedback, and if so, how do you deal with that? How do you tackle that? Yeah.
I think like honestly we rarely receive like negative feedbacks, because like I think like this is the whole point of our organization. So but still we faced rejections, and we applied to many grants, really like super convinced that they were going through, because we see the urge and we see that it is a problem. So of course when it's your like when it's your stuff, you're like, it is important. How can you not realize that we're trying to do something for like the scientific community and for this field and so on. So I think like there were a few times where we got like grants rejected, where we were like, okay, maybe it's not exactly, maybe we're not kind of touching on the right things. And that maybe could have been a little difficult, but overall we receive really positive comments when we have our events. And sometimes it's also like another thing, maybe sometimes with our virtual events we got really few people attending, and that could also be a little, because there is a lot of effort in even with us with the virtual events, like with webinars. And also in that I think that was kind of a flag, that was like a red flag. Okay, maybe we're not doing promo enough or whatever. But people that attended were still super positive. So it is always like you take the pros and cons of every experience and you learn from that.
Yeah.
So the incredible thing is you guys are growing. You guys, like the award ceremony, for example, what you said that from the first year to the second year and across the 3 years, you're getting more grants accepted. People are asking you to come on things now, like we asked you to come here. But you also mentioned that you realize the importance of organizations like yours being local or focusing on local, sort of like staying within the UK to an extent. So I was just wondering what your guys' vision is for the future, how you guys plan on growing. Is there a sort of upper limit of what you guys want to reach, or yeah?
Yeah, currently there's no upper limit at the moment, but I think that slowly increasing our sponsorships, our partnerships within the UK and internationally. So we also had a organisation, the Transmitter News. They sponsored our Win UK Awards this year. So a representative from America flew to attend the awards to present an award there. So again, smaller improvements and smaller, widen our reach and smaller positions. I think that's the way that we're working from now on. But I think that from the years onwards, so for 2026, 2027, it's again to have that small increase in our reach and also our partnerships and the work that we're doing as well.
Yes, I think like I don't think we have in mind to go like internationally or globally. But the fact that we had sponsor from outside the UK for the first time, it's already a good sign. I think like with our like social media and virtual events, we are trying to reach out of the UK. We are also trying to adjust like the time so that it is kind of easy to follow from wherever. But what is the goal in terms of in-person event is to go around the UK. So like we started from like Cambridge because we had connections. London, of course, it's always like an easy location because it's easy to reach. But there are many universities all over the country. So we're doing our Win UK Day. We're trying. I'm not sure if we found a venue. So if you have a venue, let me know. But yeah, so this is I think the goal for now, to just go locally in different realities and cities in the UK.
Beth is a big name at University of Liverpool. I'm sure she could organize something for you.
That's a really overreach, but thank you. I am a researcher.
Sorry.
I'm a researcher here, but nothing wild. So here just likes to big me up. Sorry.
Even kind of working with university neuroscience society, so we've done a lot of workshops with various university societies, so even kind of smaller ones. So at the University of Birmingham we had like, I think it was like a tea and I don't know what was it, tea and talk about what we're doing at Women Neuroscience and kind of aiming towards, was it, I think, again, early career researchers. So again, kind of more informal discussions, but raising awareness of the work that we're doing at Women in Neuroscience across universities within the UK, I think.
So you've been to kind of multiple. So which university was that? Birmingham, did you say?
Yes, Birmingham, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you maybe want to go around and do that at lots of different universities, have little tea and talks, like to as we spoke about earlier, like awareness and spreading the word?
Yeah, so I think Lizzie's done a lot of gender bias workshops across different universities across the UK. So we've done Plymouth. Can't think of anything more. Plymouth. I'm sure there's definitely been something done at Cambridge. Can you think of anything more, Ginny? Yeah, Nottingham. We had Win UK Day last year, which the turnout was really, really good.
We have a bigger group of
PhD
of volunteers there. And then Liverpool, we were there because we had two conferences, like
BNA
2023 and 4, I think, something like that, or 4 and 5. And Oxford, but yeah, it's still like, I don't know. I think we want to go a little outside of like the usual core areas of research. But yeah.
Amazing.
Come up here to Glasgow.
We do have some volunteers in Scotland also. Yeah. So
Fence is coming to Glasgow. So maybe.
I believe the BNA next one is also going to be in
BNA is in
Northern
Glasgow.
Ireland.
Yeah,
right?
So, Belfast.
Yeah.
So time to go across the water, not just to the also to the west. And so I think this might be a good time for me to kind of like, there's a question I like to ask, and I'll put it to both of you, but I'll maybe broaden it a little bit. So I want us to pretend that you've been given £2 billion, the biggest grant of them all. And let's say you want to run a study or an event. So the ethics board have all gone on holiday for a week. No such thing as ethics. You can do whatever you want. What would be your kind of dream, either study to run or event to run? And tell me about it a little bit.
Tina, you want to go first?
I understand you both would have different ones, so you guys can each go.
Who wants to go first?
Yeah. So in terms of like research project, again, I stress like unlimited resources and no ethical issue. Again, my goal is always to prevent. So I'm fascinated by translational research. Never did at all. But I think we can really learn doing like both directions. So I would love to kind of map the psychobiological changes that happen at the level of both like hormones or like brain, but even just like at the level of the blood that can easily collected to check like biomarker of abuse and maltreatment and try to like kind of create a tool that can be used to flag people that are like in probably like in danger, or like that are already in difficult situations, that can be used for getting help, without kind of like disclosure of that, which is the problem, I think, ethically. But having like kind of a signature of abuse and maltreatment, getting from the blood that GPs or like first aid can check and then act as a consequence, would be great. But again, I think like it's just the ideal thing that I would love to work on, moving on.
That's really interesting. I think from memory, there's somebody at King's College London who's sort of looking at blood biomarkers for things like depression and anxiety to try to see that if you could just test blood, you can detect these things. I don't know how well it's going, but I remember the project being up there a couple years ago.
Yeah, there is a lot like at the level of epigenetics. I'm sure there is like a group in Milan doing that. But yeah, I think like it's a long process to then really find research about it and then move on into using it as a routine screening tool. But yeah.
I mean, that actually brings up a question which I had for Ria at the very start, but we didn't actually get to it. Was because you work or want to work with third sector organizations, sort of that. What do you think researchers can do better in terms of working with such organizations? Because I feel a lot of disconnect actually happens between the research and then applying things in the real world. So somebody who doesn't work in the research phase, it'd be a good thing to hear about your opinions on that.
Yeah, sorry. My Wi-Fi keeps cutting out. I'm on my data at the moment, but it's just so bad. But I'll try and answer what I had. So I definitely think that if we're able to kind of link that gap between research and the third sector, so medical charities, in terms of the correct information is being displayed on websites and on information resources online that is up to date and is for a lay audience. I think that's the most important thing. And also, again, utilizing social media platforms to display this research, that's the most updated and that is correct, and again is accessible for all individuals. I think that's the main thing.
And I think it's something which we do really poorly at
Yeah.
universities. Our social media game is shocking.
I think that's the easiest way to kind of reach. And I think also within social media, there's so much fake news, especially medically, amongst social media. And I think if we're able to have medical charities or even the third sector at all producing videos or producing content that is accurate and that is easy to understand, I think that's the best way forward, I think.
Nice.
On that side, another thing that I would definitely do, especially in the health, like neuroscience, but generally health, people in research should know, or at least have a experience with patients,
Yeah.
to understand what are they studying, because it was also my case. I have a lot of data. It was there. I didn't even like touch or met any like human being that I was actually studying. And this is kind of like a little alienating from what you do. Maybe it also happens with animal models. Then you're like, even you're studying a completely different organism. So you are kind of separated from what is the final goal. So like to find a cure for that kind of patient, for the people. So a little bit more on that. So we also tried to do it in our last webinar. It was really important for me to have a patient talking about the real experience of being a woman in pain. It is simple sometimes. It happens at conferences, but as you see, people are just not attending that session because they think like it's not what I'm researching. Like I have this animal model of this and that, so I'm going to the panel too, and totally ignore the story of patients. So that is another thing that I felt it was lacking in my experience, but I also feel that it gets you into what is the final goal and building something that is meaningful and useful for the patient at the end of like the story, like of the research that is the final thing.
And I think working closely with, oh, sorry. I think working closely with these medical charities and having researchers present within patient focus groups. So, for example, discussing in the way that how can we tailor upcoming research to the needs and the challenges of patients within that specific area. I think that's really important also.
Yeah.
Yeah, patient voices are incredibly, yeah, from what you said, like, incredibly important. Yeah, and
Yeah.
kind of get full, kind of the full kind of like picture of what's going on isn't, one-sided just for research. It's all these little bits kind of connected together. Yeah, very fair.
Beth, do you want to ask Ria the 2 billion question, and then we can wrap up?
Yes. Do you have an answer for the 2 billion?
Yes, so it was very similar to Ginny's actually. So in terms of using biomarkers to test for specific things, but mine was mainly to do with the menstrual cycle and how we can kind of use that as a diagnostic tool for many other conditions. So, for example, I know that I don't know if it's very common within healthcare. I don't think that it is, but kind of symptom tracking. So, for example, women that experience extreme symptoms, so for example, high amounts of pain, PMS symptoms, or even high amounts of bleeding or absences within their period. If we're able to symptom track their symptoms throughout their menstrual cycle in terms of how they correlate to increases or decreases in certain hormones. What does this mean, and how can we help? How can we use this to diagnose specific conditions, such as in chronic conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, chronic stress, for example? But also, so I think I was researching last night. The FDA has approved a test using menstrual blood, so testing for biomarkers in menstrual blood. So I think they've done something to do with diagnosing a test for diabetes, looking at, I think, a hemoglobin A1C maybe. So that's just been approved. But even if we're able to look at the biomarkers within menstrual blood, again, for inflammatory markers, to further support how we're able to diagnose chronic conditions like PCOS, like endometriosis, like chronic stress, for example, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, funded, both of you. 4 billion done. Yeah, really. You're right. Not like you just don't hear a lot about it, and yeah, would also be like you'd want it to be like like a massive study and like across the world. Yeah, I think 2 billion could fund that.
I had asked you guys on the email if you guys to have like hot takes or things like that. Did you guys prepare, see them?
Yes. Yeah. I think
Do you guys have any?
Yeah. Ginny, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Beth, do you want to ask them both?
Yeah. Ginny, what is your research hot take?
My hot take is like that there is no such like universal mechanisms, and the one size fits all doesn't really exist in neuroscience. Okay, I briefly, if I need to like explain that, is that currently we have like research ongoing, and the evidence that has been produced, it's basically coming from just a narrow of non-representative samples. So we have like mainly male reach, wide, mostly coming from Western educated countries, and that is just not the case of the world population. So until we don't make science representative, we just don't really find the right treatments and the right solution to most of our problems.
Oh, very nice.
Perfect.
And Ria, what is your hot take about your field?
So obviously I'm not specifically in research, but I would like to talk about my interest. So again, female health. So my hot take would be that it's not all in your head, and specific conditions that you are feeling and specific symptoms that you are feeling, they're not this Western culture bound syndrome that you're experiencing. And I guarantee you that so many women are experiencing a similar thing. They're just not widely spoken about within mainstream media. So you feel like it's made up, but it's not. I promise your feelings are valid and you're not crazy at all.
Perfect.
Brilliant. I think there's a good notes to end on as well, that
Yes.
everything isn't generalizable.
Yes, very
And
true. Can I have one question? I think it might be a
of
bit more
course,
good on. So, for listeners who might want to support or get involved with Win UK, what would you tell them, and what's the entry point as well?
As we mentioned before, everyone is welcome. And we are always in need. So feel free to reach out if you're interested. Just even email us, or any social media message works well. We usually have recruitment rounds on need, but honestly, maybe it's every quarter or something. So maybe we just finished one. So in a few months, I think maybe there's going to be a new one. Currently, we are looking for an advisory board. Like, we're building an advisory board, so also everyone is welcome to join in there. We are looking for and seeking for different expertise, especially if are a little outside of neuroscience, because we need some expertise also on practical things. We had, I don't know, legal issues or like event organizations. Everything is needed. And yeah, and if you cannot, just try to follow us on social media, try to like share, comment, and yeah, participate.
Another thing would be, so we're always
Great.
looking for, oh, sorry, Bethany. We're always looking
No,
for
just
we're always looking for guest blog writers. So we release monthly prompts on our writer Slack. So I'm not sure how do you join that? Do you know, Jenny?
On the website, you can just
Okay.
contact the blog
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
via mail, and then you're gonna be added to the Slack
Yeah.
channel. Yeah.
So there's monthly prompts released, but also if there's anything that you're really passionate about writing, if you were able to email the blog team, then they're more than happy to kind of sort something out for you. And on the social media side, we're always looking for individuals to share day in the life content, so something that's kind of quirky and very different to your normal kind of lab life. Anything that's weird and wonderful, we're kind of open to creating content on your day in the lives and kind of sharing it on our social medias, and anything content related, we're more than happy to kind of collaborate with you and share across our social media and so on.
brilliant. I will make sure all the social media handles are like in the description of the videos and things as well for Women
Perfect,
in
thank
Neuroscience
you.
UK. So they're all there. Yeah, I guess on that note, thank you, Ria and Ginny, for joining.
It's been
Thank you so
fantastic
much.
having you
It
on.
was lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Ben.
It was lovely to meet you all, and thank you everybody for listening. I know once you go follow Women in Neuroscience UK, and I'll remember to give us a like and subscribe as well before that, doing that. And yeah, until next time, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.